comments. How's it going, ballers? Brofist to you all. There are no brofists up here. This makes me really sad. It's because you haven't sent any in the last few days. Oh, what the fuck? Send some to me. preachgaming@gmail.com. Send them to me. Let's get your brofists up in the air. I don't care if you even sent one before. Just send me some stuff. I want to know who you guys are. 20,000 of you. Let me know who you are. Let me see. Let me see you. Let me see you. You see me. I want to see you. I want to see Dream Lady 141 or Dream Lady 41. Is it a dude? Is it a lady? Is it a luscious lady of the interwebs who is swift with a keyboard with the nail polish shining and glittering as we would like to imagine it? We picture this wonderful internet vixen who strikes into our hearts when we see a name like Dream Lady. She must be luscious and beautiful. Did anybody see today, not to be gross, that a Brazilian lady who was rather beautiful sold her virginity for £500,000? £500,000. And she's a legit like business major. She totally marketed herself and everything. She was like, men are idiots. Men will fucking pay £500,000 just to take my virginity, which is an awful experience anyway. To anybody who's ever done this, who has ever experienced this without being too graphic with a lady for the first time in her life, it's not pretty. It's not an enjoyable experience. It really isn't. It's pretty terrible. It's pretty terrible, but still, £500,000. Good luck to you, son, you fucking loser. Emma put me onto this. She loves finding out about weird shit. And then there are terms and conditions, and it's really interesting. She was like, this is amazing. This is the best thing I've ever heard. It's fucking crazy. Oh, so grim. But she's like totally made her whole life special because of this. Do you know what I mean? She's solved all the world's problems. Oh, well, now I'm rich. I'm like pretty wealthy. I can do whatever the fuck I want. I can get out of Brazil, which is struggling economically. I can just go wherever the fuck I please now because I sold my virginity. What? Who paid that? Who is the guy? What's wrong with you, man? My God, just come to... If you come to Manchester, plenty of ladies out here who are more than willing to do anything for much less than £500,000. I'm telling you, I can make it happen. I'll be your pimp daddy. Just cut me a share. Cut me a share of that money. I'll sort you out. I'll do it. I'm your man. I'm your businessman. Okay, so we're going to continue with story time today. I think it might be a three-parter moving into your stories tomorrow. There's some action happening here in the UK, in my life, at 6 p.m. It is now 3 minutes past 5. So we'll see how story time goes. Can I condense it to within 1 hour? Probably not, as there is some exciting and rather terrifying World of Warcraft news. Following up from yesterday, loads of people in the comments are like, oh my God, don't quit WoW. I'm not quitting WoW. As if I quit my favourite game. Are you kidding me? I'm just going to change the style of my content a little bit and mix it up a bit and have some more fun. We was talking to Ghosty today and he's like, I'm well up for playing more games. It's probably the surge of Mr. Pandaria, like committing to Mr. Pandaria so much that as a gamer, I want some variety in my life. We've talked about this in the past. World of Warcraft should not be your only game. Shouldn't be that way. So, what is exciting, and it isn't on the front page of MMO Champion, probably will be soon, if not probably now. I found about this earlier today. What is exciting that has happened in World of Warcraft? Ooh, you're wondering with bated breath. You wait. You wait and I will hold you on tenterhooks because that's the kind of guy I am. I will make you wait. Nope, not World of Warcraft losing subs. It's about raiding. It's about raiding. It's about raiding. And it's happening first in Korea. Korea. And the Lord nails it like a German boss. They are reintroducing shared lockouts. 25 and 10 man. Not only this, Korea is receiving different loot to the rest of the world. Their heroic loot will be a higher item level than anything we can possibly achieve. Isn't that interesting? Huh? It's interesting because That's fucked up. That is fucked up, isn't it? Another Brad decision. This is quite clearly, we're going to talk about this in detail a little bit of how angry this... I found out from this, of course, from the Method Raiders, who I have on my Skype. And they were like, dude, did you read this? And I was doing the Paladin stuff. I'll talk about the Paladin stuff shortly. And I was like, what is it? He linked me some MMO Champion article. And then I read the title. It was like, shared lockouts. I didn't even read it. And I was like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. So I clicked it. And it was like, in Korea, Korea's going to get Mr. Pandaria. Yeah, and then they're going to get shared lockouts. And their item level's going up to like 502, I believe, in heroic items. And I was like, oh, this is bad. Now the world race is massively uneven. Because if the Koreans can do shared lockouts, that means they can gear twice as many people, twice as fast, right? Because the Koreans are, of course, known for sticking to one character. Am I right? Yeah, Stars has, what, like 800 raiding members or something stupid? I think it was... Yogg-Saron, they said they had something like 500 active raiding members. They had at least 8 25-man separate deviations within the guild that were all raiding separately. Yeah. Fuck yeah. That shit is serious. Oh, it's going on. Well, of course, Stars was China. But it's the same playstyle they do over there. In Asia, they game hardcore. They game fucking hardcore. From China to Korea to Taiwan, whatever you want to believe. They raid fucking hardcore. Am I right? I'm right. I am really right. It was the Kin Raiders were from Korea, I believe, or maybe they were Taiwanese. And now they have the opportunity to gear plenty more characters. Higher item level than anything in the US and EU. Oh, shit. Shit just got real. Now, that doesn't affect most of us, right? The World First Race doesn't affect most of us. Which is cool. It's all good. It's all fine and dandy. It's okay. That aspect, most of us won't really care about. We won't. We just don't care. What we do care about is, this is likely to be a test. Will this be well received in Korea? They say it matches their playstyle more, which means they play more. So, if it works in Korea, it's coming to the US and EU. It's coming. Maybe in patch 5.2. Maybe midway through patch 5.1. It is coming if this works. A couple of ifs in there, and I'm not a person who likes the word if. I don't like people who have a problem that has got out of hand and then they go, well, if we did this, it doesn't matter. I'm the first person to go, fuck you! If doesn't count as a word. If to me means you are really slowing down the progress of a solution. If we would have done that. If we would have... Yeah, but what if? What if is even worse? We could go ahead and do this, but what if? I can't work that out. I take a gamble on most things I do. I think this is the best course of action. That's how I decide stuff. People who say to me, what if, are assholes. I hate people who say, yeah, but what if, what if, what if? We don't know. And therefore, we cannot plan in such a case. We can maybe expect that could occur, and what would we do in that case? That's called pre-planning. It's normal. Perfectly normal. But people who live in the world of what ifs really annoy me. And then people go, yeah, but if we would have done this, shoulda, woulda, coulda, buddy. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. This is the situation we're in. Let's deal with it. So this will, if it works, come to the US and EU. Instant poll with all the people right here, right now. What do you think? Shared lockouts. I know my opinion. Ain't great. No, wrong. I like it. Instant Shenron like a boss. No, 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 fuck no, no, no. Not only will you contend with your dailies, which are an overwhelming success, you will now have to fucking contend with the... Vanish is trolling. I don't know what it means. Okay, let me explain this. Back in the days of Wrath of the Lich King, you could raid ICC or TOC or Naxxramas or any of the other raids on 10-man and 25-man in the same week. Separately. They had different loot that dropped. So you could do 10-man on a Tuesday and do 25-man on a Wednesday, or whatever it is you like to do. Wednesday was the worst choice ever, Preach. What the fuck? Wednesday's reset day. I'm so sorry. Oh, such an idiot. But you know what I'm saying. Okay. They then decided to remove this and go for 25 and 10 man is the same difficulty. We know that's not the case. Why? Because we have common sense. 25 and 10 man will never be equally balanced in any way. And I'm not saying that's in favour of one or the other. That's not the case either. They just cannot be perfectly the same. Why? Because inherently they are different. End of fucking story. 25 and 10 man is different. Therefore, they are not the same. It's very difficult, isn't it, to get one cake and another cake and say they are the same taste cake. Well, they might even have the same fucking ingredients, but they are different. They were cooked in a slightly different way. The temperature just wasn't exactly the same. The point you took it out of the oven was minusculely different, but different. They are not the same. It's impossible for them to be exactly the same. Okay, addressed, sorted, agreed, good. Let's move on. So, is this Blizzard admitting that is the case? After pushing it for 2 years, 10 and 25 are the same. It isn't. It never will be. We know that. We'll get it as close as possible, Blizzard says. They're not stupid enough to say, no, definitively, they're exactly the same. They say we'll get them as close as possible. We thank you, Blizzard, for not trying to say they are exactly the same. Okay. The problem with this system and why it was abolished in the first place is huge burnout of every single PvE player in the game. You are not only experiencing the new content in one respect, but you're also rerunning it twice a week at a minimum. So you are burning through the enjoyment of content twice as fast. Are you with me? You are raiding the same instance twice. I have done this all the way up to Mr. Pandaria. Mr. Pandaria is the first raid tier I haven't been at the cutting edge of playing. Let me tell you, all of Wrath of the Lich King suffered from this problem. TOC, twice a week, fuck my life. Heroic or not, oh, such lameness. Ulduar twice a week, not too bad, but certainly towards the end of Ulduar, it was kind of, Then you mix in the fact that we needed alts, and most of the top raid guilds need alts. Even a lot of mediocre raid guilds need alts. You're now up to 4 times a week to appropriately gear your character. Mix in the endless dailies that we are still suffering from. I know a lot of people are just quitting the game because of the dailies. Now mix in that fact. We are in a pickle, my ballers. A pickle if this comes back. I hope it doesn't work out well in Korea. I hope it's abolished. I genuinely do. I know they're testing the waters. Otherwise, it would just be a widespread decision. But we're going to give it to Korea, see how it plays out. They're not going to publish it that way, but that's what they're doing. If it works there, we'll trial it in EU and US. I pray to the gods that doesn't happen, because you are just going to lose so many players. Really, and you cannot use the adage, you don't have to do it. Yeah, I don't have to log in either and feel people saying, have you done 10 man this week? Have you done 25 man? Have you done all your dailies? I don't need to log in and find that either. I know which one is easier. I know which one will probably give me more fun at the end of the day. I really, really do. I can totally understand that situation. Wow, 10 and 25 man again? Shared lockouts? Ugh. Bitter taste to say the least. Let's talk about Paladins. This was me about to play the Holy Paladin. Woo-hoo-hoo! Gonna play some Holy Paladin. This was me after playing the Holy Paladin. What the fuck? What the shit happened to the Holy Paladin? And Rep for that matter. And Protection. As stupid as it sounds, the servers went down today, so I didn't get to finish all of the Paladin videos. There was nothing I could do. Sylvanas went down. I didn't care. I was like, oh, thank God. After I did the Holy Paladin video, I swear to God, Emma was in here, and she was doing some business stuff for us. She was sorting out some of the final prep on the store with the t-shirts and shit. And I just said, I'm going for a walk. And she went, you're going for a walk? I'm like, I'm going for a walk. I need to clear my head. I am just baffled by this class in terms of what happened to it. I'm like, I need to go for a walk. I just went for a walk, got some fresh air, came back, and was like, I even rinsed my face. I was like, oh, whew. Let's talk about Holy Paladins. Oh my god. And it was Holy that was the worst by a long way. You know what's the problem? Again, it felt like the Holy Priest. We have all these things. Shit in raids. Shit and boring. Boring as something needs to happen with healing in WoW. I'm dead fucking serious. Something needs to happen that isn't, there's lots of AoE damage, there's lots of tank damage, there is nothing in between. That is your downtime to prepare for the next lots of AoE damage. You have this period where it's like, okay, there's lots of AoE damage. Okay, now I take a break. Then there's lots of AoE damage. And then I take a break. And then there's lots of tank damage. And I take a break. And then there's lots of AoE damage. Oh my god. Seriously. What the fuck? The trash is so much more interesting to heal. It is. Any boss. And I spoke to a couple of healers because I thought, this can't be right. So I whispered a couple of healer friends of mine. And I was like, is this the playstyle now? Is this what you're doing? It's like, yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. You have these big bursty periods of damage, and then it's just like topping people off. Some of the bosses have interesting mechanics. They actually said that, is he Garajar, the troll guy, the fucking spirit bender? He's one of the most interesting because you literally have to heal another person specifically. What? That is the interesting mechanic is, oh, you have to watch for the voodoo doll and then heal them. That's the most interesting boss for us in terms of healing. The rest of it is bursty AoE or bursty single timing, and that's about it. And you kind of have to plan your cooldowns. So I said, what's the most important, what's the most interesting, that was what I said, the most interesting boss you've ever healed? You know what came back? Was quite literally the most boring boss in the universe from a DPS and a tank perspective. Deathbringer Salfang was brought up. Deathbringer Salfang. And they said because it was constantly hard from start to finish. It just built up into this really, really stressful, tight situation. And I said, the other guy gave me a different answer, and it was like Valithria Dreamwalker, and it was because we saw big numbers. And then I said, what about this boss? And they went, oh, that thing was a bitch. That thing was a bitch. I'm talking about heroic Deathbringer Salfang, especially in progression level gear. I'm not talking about people who overgeared it. Heroic Deathbringer Salfang was hugely coordinated amongst the healers. We had to do mega coordination amongst the healers, especially the Paladins who were shining brightly at the time. We had to really coordinate so many different things, like splitting the healers, because all your healers at the start could start in a nice general area. By the end of the fight, they were all assigned all over the fucking place, doing all sorts of crazy stuff, planning bops, and then we got this cooldown for this guy, and that cooldown for that guy, and all sorts of crazy stuff. And I was like, that's cool. It builds to a crescendo of healing. Getting back to the Holy Paladin, I just felt like I was either using Holy Shock and Eternal Flame, or I was using Holy Radiance and Light of Dawn. Sometimes I got to mix up Holy Shock and Holy Radiance, depending on the situation. Casting direct heals was essentially a waste of my fucking life. Like, doing that was a mana waste. A serious mana waste. So on the first boss, I healed like I normally would, right? I went in, I was using Divine Lights, Holy Shocks, Light of Dawn. I didn't use Light's Hammer, although I wish I did. I used the Holy Prism, because I wanted to play around with that mechanic. I liked the idea. Has Holy Prism been changed, by the way, for anybody who's a permanent Holy Paladin? I seem to remember on beta that Holy Prism actually created a prism wall, and it was people that were inside the wall got a benefit of it. Now it's just an instant, it's Circle of Healing. Am I the only one who just thought it was Circle of Healing now? It's called Holy Prism. It's Circle of Healing, right? It just AoE heals off the spot. That's about it. It's Circle of fucking Healing. Yeah, they scrapped it. I knew there was something different about it. It's a freaky laser beam now, and the hammer is fucking great. Yeah, the hammer is great, but the hammer is looks cool, but it's Healing Rain. I was reading these things, and then I was talking to a guy. He's like, "Oh yeah, it's just Healing Rain, but a 1 minute cooldown." And I'm like, "Oh right." And he's like, "Yeah, you just put it down wherever you want, and it just AoE heals." And I'm like, "Oh okay." What about Holy Prism? Because that sounded fucking awesome on the beta. I remember reading something about Holy Prism, and it created walls. and you could do stuff with the walls. And so, without being a smartass, I didn't read the change to Holy Prism. So when I was using Holy Prism, I was straight up, no word of a lie, planning where to cast my Holy Prism so I would get as many people in the wall as possible. So I was like positioning myself, and I was like, well, if I use the tank from here to here, that creates a wall around the melee. But if I cast it on that guy, it like creates a wall around this many people, maybe. So I was like planning my Holy Prism, which was brilliant. I really enjoyed doing that. And then I cast it, it was like 150k healing or whatever. I was like, huh? Oh, what was that? That wasn't a Holy Prism, was it? So then I go back and read it, and it's like, yeah, it's you turn the character into a prism, and he heals 5 or 6 people around him. So circle of healing then, right? So I was like, that's circle of healing. The other one is a big direct heal and execution sentence. Huge direct heal. Okay, so that's just healing the tank then. And then the other one is an arc of light that shoots from the ground, healing people around it. So healing rain, efflorescence, or holy word sanctuary. In fact, the same spell every single healer has. Essentially, it's exactly the same. And that was, again, it just took away from the fun of the class. And then I found myself running and I was like, I'm not running and the other Paladin was beating me. Now, I was in full PvP gear, gemmed for PvP power, so I was at a great disadvantage in the LFR that I filmed, but that was okay. It was just to show you that you can do it in PvP gear, and I was not too far behind the other Paladin. But I was doing holy lights there. I was like, that guy needs a holy shot followed by a flash of light with the glyph, so now I've got a big holy light landed on him. I was weaving and ducking and fucking diving. I was like Batman. I had a utility belt going on. I was all over the fucking place. I was loving it. And then my healing was like not as cool as the other Paladin, but I was like, well, whatever. So I'm going on, and I see there's a Light's Hammer on the floor, so I'm like, oh, well, he's using Light's Hammer. That's probably better for the Stone Guard, because there's a lot of AoE damage, so he's probably getting a lot of benefit from that. So I thought, cool. And then I was kind of running so I started meleeing the boss a little bit, so I positioned myself, so I was getting some melee damage, getting some mana back from Seal of Insight, and then weaving in, obviously, Divine Please and stuff. So I worked my ass off, and was not quite up to the other Paladin. And I was like, no, that's okay. I wasn't expecting to win. I was in full PvP gear. I even had a PvP trinket that had just mastery on it. No intellect whatsoever. Or spirit, for that matter. So I was kind of like, that's okay. And then afterwards, I literally just moused over on my SCADA what the other Paladin had done. Fuck my life. Seriously. No Holy Shocks. No Holy Lights. No Divine Lights. No Flash of Lights. None of it. Holy Radiance. Light's Hammer. Light of Dawn. That was it. He had done nothing else, and he had just fucking destroyed me. He was about 45k HPS, I was about 35k, 10k HPS above me, and that is all he had done. Literally nothing else. All his healing came from Ark's Light, which is the heal from the hammer, Light of Dawn, and fucking... Yeah, it was looking for raid, don't get me wrong, it was looking for raid. But that was it. That's all he had done. Now, I then asked, obviously it's looking for raid, like the chat said, that's looking for raid, you can get away with doing that. So then I asked the other guys what they done. They said, yeah, well, sometimes in Heroic, we kind of mix up Holy Light and Eternal Flame as well. Well, the difficulty, of course, is, and I quote, the difficulty, of course, is keeping Eternal Flame on 2 tanks at the same time. Eternal Flame lasts for 30 seconds. Sounds pretty difficult to me to keep up a 30-second hot on 2 people. Sounds pretty fucking deep. Sounds pretty fucking terrible. Oh, that sounds difficult. I better get my thinking cap on for this one. Need to focus up. 2 Eternal Flames, huh? I can handle this. I got this, bros. I got this. Fuck me. So boring. Really is so boring. I hope that maybe gear changes it just to allow a lot more freedom. This was talking from the guys who've done Heroic, and it was kind of it was disappointing to say the least. I was really bored doing it. In fact, I stopped doing commentary. I was doing commentary in the Looking for Raid, and I was just like, by the end of it, I was like drooling. And then I was done. I was like, I'm done. So I just thought I'll do the commentary in post so I can put some spin in it. I need to talk to some people. I like to pick up a class and play it and sort of figure out the play style for myself. And I did. It turns out I was doing it reasonably correctly for about a normal to heroic progression, which is mixing in the other spells. I'm sure if I would have had more PvE gear, I would have demolished the other guy. It was just very disappointing to see that that playstyle works for some players. What are healers going to learn in an LFR if they can behave that way? If you can play your character like that with just 3 buttons and probably Divine Plea, what are you learning about your class? Really? But the guy was pleased. He even kept linking the healing meter, which was really weird to me. He's linking the healing meter like, yeah, I kick ass. Let's talk about Rhett for a moment. Rhett was better. Obviously, Rhett has the major... You know what it is about Rhett? Rhett has suffered since its inception as being a viable spec, as just being clunky. Just being a clunky spec. And they've just not fixed that. They haven't fixed that. Now, one of the big problems is the AoE. So AoE in a Rhett Paladin is kind of a thinking process that you really have to consider. And it was like, I was doing a lot of math and research, and I ran some numbers myself and tested this out. And it was just stupid rules that I'm going to have to put into the guide, and I don't want to, because they're stupid. It's like, oh, 2 mobs, you no longer Templar's Verdict. Use the AoE finisher for 2 mobs. Okay. When do I use Hammer of the Righteous? At 5 or 6 mobs? I then start. So I'm using the AoE finisher at 2 mobs, but I'm now using the AoE combo point generator at 5 to 6 mobs, and then I can use the AoE seal at around 6 to 7 mobs. It's really annoying. That is really, really annoying. That was the rules. Then comes the DPS cooldowns, right? Guarding the Ancient Kings, 5 minutes. Avenging Wrath, 3 minutes. Holy Avenger, 2 minutes. Right? Now, I'm not saying Holy Avenger is the best. They're all within 1 or 2 DPS of 1 to 2% DPS of each other. But I rolled with Holy Avenger. 1, for the fact that I could become God. Now, there's something really cool about being God for a really short period, because you can do Guard of the Ancient Kings, Avenging Wrath, and Holy Avenger all at the same time, right? And you pull, I think even on the shitty geared Rep Paladin I was doing like 140k DPS. So being God for a short period of time is always fun. But the chance, them cooldowns don't realign until 4 down the fucking road, right? 4 uses down the road do they realign, which is never nice. DPS cooldowns should marry up and be nice. They should be nice and cool. And it just doesn't work that way. And it was really annoying to me. It was really annoying. And the whole spec was like, ah! But still cool numbers. Still pretty numbers and all that kind of stuff, which is pretty cool. So that was, and I didn't get to protection, but I will get there tomorrow or maybe this evening when the servers come back up. I will get there. So that's my take on the Paladins so far. Struggling to find a cool intro for them. Very easy for me to do cool intros for the DKs. DKs, I was laughing. I was in happy times with the DKs. What to do for the Paladin? I don't know. I think about it. I could be funny with it, but I tend to do something that I think is personally funny and you guys will really get. Right? And you'll be like, oh, Preacher's bored in this video. Let's see what he does for it. And I could do an intro where I'm like, oh. And then suddenly 2 weeks down the line, it's like, okay, we're going to mix it up and make it a lot more interesting. And it's like the whole guide is useless. And people try and watch my guide in like a month's time. And it's like, this makes no sense. So I might do something reasonably epic. It's quite easy to be epic with a Paladin. They have all the holy, you know, light heroes and fucking Lights Chapel and all that kind of shit. So I can do something cool with it. I'm just debating what to do with it. Let's move on to Storytime Part 2. Okay, so I assume those of you using the timestamps on the videos will have already skipped to this and missed all the Paladin. Yesterday I was discussing the idea of quitting WoW and the few times and situations that we have come up with where we want to quit WoW. It's probably happened to, unless you're brand new to the game, it's probably happened to you at some point where you felt like now is your time to leave the game or take a break or do any of those kind of things. But we don't really like doing that. We don't like to be the guy who goes, oh, I'm leaving the game now. We don't like to do that. What we like to do, and I know this because I've done it, is put ourselves in a situation that will force us to leave. Would that be Ghost? That would be Ghost. Of course, texting me during the stream, Mr. Ghost. just as I begin story time, to break my flow of concentration, of course. So we like to put ourselves in a situation that will ultimately relate to us leaving the game and leave us with no other opportunity. Yesterday I told you the story, the tale if you will, of how I believed I was mistreated, misguided, and not helped enough in my journey. Little nod to the word journey there. Into becoming a successful warrior on my dwarven, grey-bearded warrior. And it was of the opinion of me at the time that I should have been spoon-fed my journey to me. But I would probably have enjoyed the way the game is now back then. I can kind of see how some things in relation... It's always nice to look back and say, if I was playing today's game then, what would I think? Well, the me who played the game then, who was younger, around 20 years old, would have probably enjoyed the game now, where everything is literally sort of given to you relatively easily. I did not know at level 60 of the Onyxia Chain Quest. I did not know of the Molten Core Attunement. What's an attunement? I did not know that I needed materials to get enchants. We spoke about these yesterday. So I may have enjoyed today's game a little bit more then. That's not a good thing, by the way. It's not a good thing. I would rather be me now, having gone through that process and sort of look at things the way I do now. I am glad that the game wasn't like it is now then, so that I could sort of progress up onto this. So, I would like to say that the next time I tried to leave WoW was when I was feeling like I was running a guild that was not up to my skill level. And as an egomaniac, as I was back then, Storytime 2. If you've never seen Storytime 2, check it on my channel. You will thoroughly enjoy it. And I wanted to either leave the game or go straight for world firsts. That's what I wanted to do. I sort of felt like I was in the position to either kill something world first or... People still text me. I don't understand this, right? Everybody in my family and friends know that I do a show at 5 PM. They all text me. And I felt literally like I was leading a guild that was doomed to failure. I was also of the opinion that I no longer wanted to be a healer. This is during the Burning Crusade. In my ego and wisdom, I decided to form a new guild. I would be the guild master and I would single-handedly poach players from the best guilds on the server. I talk about this extensively in Storytime 2. I did this. I poached what I considered to be the best players on the server. This server was Balnazar, EU. And I also recruited my family, who were good players. My brother, my nephew, my two nieces, who play in Stark Industries at the moment. And I also recruited Ghost from the Alliance side. I convinced Ghost to re-roll with me, and we would both be the Paladins of the guild. He had been playing my lips fell off. He had been playing a Paladin for a very long time, almost all of vanilla. He had been an Alliance Paladin. And now Horde were getting Paladins. He didn't want to re-roll to Horde at any point before this because he loved his Paladin. So when the Horde was getting Paladins, he was more than happy to come and join us and the family and stuff, because we consider Andy part of our family. Ghost has been a very close BFF of mine for... Oh, I'm going to miscalculate this and he's going to be pissed, like a woman. I want to say 18 years, maybe 17 years. So as such, he's very much part of the family. And I was in good shape to do this. And I re-rolled Paladin. I had been a priest all the way through vanilla. And going into TBC, I would be a holy Paladin. Because, of course, back then, Paladins only had one use. Am I right? Am I right? Paladins only had one use during the Burning Crusade and vanilla, and that was to heal. Shut the fuck up. Shut your fucking mouth and heal. That was it. You were a healer. And a brilliant healer at that. Very overpowered. But, yeah, they were all a healer. So... I did this, and we did rather well. And ultimately, another guild transferred to Balnazar and were a top world contender. They were called Celebrity. And we did not expect that. We were aiming for Realm first. We didn't get it. Celebrity beat us. We were Realm second. I was reasonably happy with that. I had certain members of that guild that were crazy as fuck. And I don't mean that in terms of a fun way. Like, oh, this guy's crazy. Not like that at all. I mean had serious mental instability that affected them in everyday lives. From clinical depression to alcoholism to various other things. And I won't be naming names of those people for obvious reasons. One of them was in fact one of my officers who had both depression and alcoholism and had some sort of head injury at some point and was very prone to being a crazy bastard sometimes and doing rather bizarre things, from crying one day to being incredibly angry the next. But I had played with him through a lot of vanilla, through Blackwing Lair, through AQ. I didn't play with him in Nax. He went off about his own guild then. He also came with a best friend. And his best friend was a shaman. Probably not. I think using the word good shaman would be incorrect. But he was a fun guy, to say the least. He was one of those guys who was extremely fun to be around. I really enjoyed being with him. So I had a collection of various mishmash players, and that was cool. But we started to suffer. One, in my own personal, I decided I hated healing. I disliked it a lot. I was bored to tears healing. I really was. I was done with healing. I'd done it through all of vanilla. A thankless job in vanilla. A very thankless job. And still probably to this day a relatively thankless job in raiding terms. I was a very good priest by the end of it. An extremely good priest. I don't mind saying that. It's not egotistical. I was. I wasn't most of the way through vanilla. But by the end I really got my shit together and I was a pretty good priest. And so Holy Paladin came much easier to me, as the priest was a shitload more fun, ultimately, to me than a paladin. And pressing Flash of Light over and over again wasn't that enjoyable. You know what I mean? In fact, TBC was when Holy Shock came in. So we had Holy Shock and Flash of Light. Oh, buddy! 2 different kinds of heals. And of course, Holy Light. But Holy Light is well expensive. So you only use Flash of Light and Holy Shock. Mega healing. But you could keep going all day. And I just didn't enjoy it. We killed Gruul. We killed Magtheridon. It was around Magtheridon, actually. Magtheridon required Warlocks. If anybody ever did Magtheridon, legit, if you ever did Magtheridon at the appropriate gear level, which was in tier 4 gear. I'm not talking about going back later even in the Burning Crusade and killing him for bags. I'm talking about doing Magtheridon when clearing the trash was harder than the boss. If you know what I mean, you know where I'm at. So clearing the trash harder than the boss, Magtheridon, right? Magtheridon's lair. And Magtheridon needed Warlocks, because Magtheridon's ads summoned a lot of Infernals, which needed to be banished and feared. Only Warlocks could do that. We had one Warlock, okay? This Warlock is really good, and a good friend of mine to this day. And he's English as well, and I'd known him since my first MMO. He was one of the original guys to play with me, and he rolled his Warlock on the day I rolled my Priest in Vanilla, and was still with me to that day. And I had some great times with him. He was called X-Man, E-K-S-M-A-N. And he's awesome. But we had no other Warlocks. Because Warlocks weren't great at the time. They were okay. They just weren't great, so we'd never bothered to recruit another one. So we needed more Warlocks. I had leveled and capped my Warlock, because I enjoyed the idea of it. He was called Relent. I don't know why. I just thought it was a cool name. And, oh my god, side story. I eventually changed the name of Relent to Corinthian. Going along with the whole Preach theme. I don't know. Forget about it. So, no, nothing to do with Relentless. Oh, by the way, guys, stop sending me Monster is the biggest killer on the planet emails. I get it. Some people with weak hearts shouldn't drink Monster. I get it. I get it. Stop sending me emails. I'm not going to die. I'm okay. I'm fine. It's okay. I'm checking my heart. I'm good. I'm good. So, I leveled my Warlock, Relent, to try it out. And I enjoyed it a lot. I didn't enjoy it for the right reasons. This is why I was talking about class selection yesterday. I didn't enjoy it for the right reasons. I enjoyed it because I wasn't healing. Okay? So anything other than what I didn't enjoy, which was playing my Holy Paladin, to what I did enjoy, which was doing something else, I thought was amazing. I thought this is the best thing in the fucking world. This is one of those things that people always see with the grass is greener. A lot of emails I get sent are, dude, should I re-roll? I'm like, just be careful about re-rolling, especially to a class you don't have a lot of experience on, because what happens is you re-roll and it's fun for a few weeks, and then you're like, I don't really like this either once it settles in. So I was 100% focused that I wanted to be a warlock. As the guild master, I had certain powers which I abused entirely. I posted a topic in the officer forum, said, I don't want to play my paladin anymore. I said, I'm such a twat for saying this, by the way. Never say this. Please, God, if you're thinking of doing something like this, never say this, okay? It's really grim. Don't do it. I said something like, I don't want to be a holy paladin anymore. I'm tired of healing. It's making me want to quit the game, which was a complete fucking lie, by the way. I would like to play possibly my warlock, maybe. If this is a problem, bear in mind I was the guild master and the raid leader, I will gladly leave the guild to find somewhere that needs a DPS, as I know we don't need a DPS. And then I did this. Watch as it happens. And of course, what would happen if your raid leader and guild master suggests I want to reroll or quit? Everyone supports you. Unquestionably, everyone's like, oh, of course we don't want you to leave, Preach. And I'm like, really? You guys don't want me to leave? And they're like, no, we don't want you to leave. And I'm like, oh, but we don't need a DPS. We'll find room. You're a good player. We want you to stick around. And I'm like, oh, guys, you made me... I was so terrified writing this. I genuinely was. I was like, oh, they're going to hate me and stuff, you know? Oh, and they were like, no, dude, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. A fun side story to this is my mage class leader, who was awesome, who was called Nups, with a K, K-N-U-P-Z-Z. I hope he still plays, actually, because he was a fantastic mage and very good at game mechanics. I think better than being just a good player is knowing the game inside out. He knew his mechanics, so he knew how to push his class, which was awesome. I recruited him. He was getting bored of being a mage. He asked if he could get an account in my name and take the Holy Paladin. I never capped my Paladin, right? I was already bored of being a Paladin. I let Nups cap my Paladin. I was like, I'm so bored of leveling. I totally played on the fact that I was the guild master and stuff. I really did. I was such a horrible person. So I got to, I think I got to about level 60. No, it can't have been, can it? Yeah, it was level 70, wasn't it? So I would have got to about Blade's Edge Mountain, I think. And I had been pre-warned by the rest of the guild that Blade's Edge Mountain was a nightmare. To avoid it at all costs and trying to jump straight to Netherstorm. Try and avoid Blade's Edge Mountain, because with a flying mount, it's so much easier. But you don't get the flying mount till level 70, so try and avoid it at all possible. Go anywhere else besides Blade's Edge Mountain. So I just reached Blade's Edge Mountain, and I just couldn't be arsed anymore. I had turbo leveled it along with Ghost. I mean, me and Ghost were... I think I leveled cap just before Ghost. Not that I played it. But Ghost wasn't far behind me. We played from the same house. I've got a photograph somewhere. I'm not going to get it of us with a huge pizza, ready to rock the Burning Crusade. And I was just so fed up. And then I was like, I don't want to play it. And he was like, and Nups, being Horde forever, had never played a Paladin. So he was like, can I try your Paladin out? And I was like, yes. Yes, you could try my Paladin out. No problem, right? So he goes... So I gave him my account details, and off he goes. And then I was literally armoring it, or checking it, or doing something. I might have even just been logging the account to the login screen, which would still have logged him out, but I wasn't logging back in just to see what level he was at. Like, is he capped yet? I was of the opinion, and I literally, it wasn't that I stopped playing to go to bed. I just turned WoW off, let him play it, while I just sat and did whatever, played something else. I'm such a twat. That was horrible. I totally did that. And so I was just logging in to see, and as soon as he was like level 70, I was immediately going to log in. Log in and take it over. So I was just waiting around. I think I even AFK'd in the vent channel to hear when he called out for level 70, and it's like, oh, I capped the Paladin. Yay. Oh, I've just come back. Really? You just capped? Yeah. Let me log in and do everything then. Woohoo! So it was all pretty cool. It was all pretty cool. He didn't cap. The motherfucker didn't cap my Paladin. What a bastard. He didn't cap. Can you believe it? Cheeky get. All he had to get was 2 levels. He was well up for capping. So I eventually went to sleep, didn't hear the cap shout out that he'd been capped. The guild master's now capped, right? Everybody else had been capped well before me because I re-rolled. Fucker didn't cap. Bastard. So the next day I woke up and I checked my paladin. I was like, well, he must have capped by now. I've just been to sleep. He must have capped it. Log in, level 69. I was like, you prick. Fucking asshole. I was like, I can't believe it. I've got to play my paladin more. Oh, I just wanted to heal in dungeons. That was my main goal. Anyway, I logged in. I was that far away from cap. He purposely left it so I could cap the paladin. He'd been a really nice guy. I was hating on him all the time. I was like, before I even logged the character, I was like, you motherfucker, wait till I speak to this guy. I'm going to be like, you couldn't even be asked to get 2 goddamn levels? Are you kidding me? And he had like the quests to turn in and stuff. He'd logged out next to the guy to turn the quests in with like just so little XP to get. Oh man. Bad times, man, bad times. Anyway, I logged in and I like caps. And I was like, hey, caps. And they're like, oh, well done, mate. Well done. I was like, yeah, all me, buddy. It's all me. Don't you worry about it. But as we get back to the story, Nups actually loved the paladin for the level and a half or 2 levels he'd actually bothered to do. These guys hate it. I tell you, watch Storytime 2. This is the stuff you should know about to not be like this. I can look back at this and laugh and apologise to those people because it was a terrible thing to do. I'm aware of that. So it gets to the stage where I didn't want to be a paladin, I wanted to be a warlock. So as he was a mage, he said, can I buy an account, put it in your name, and then transfer the paladin to my account, my separate account, and I won't play my mage anymore. Being the selfish, greedy git, I didn't want to lose one of the best mages on the server. But also, being a selfish, egotistical asshole like I was, I kind of figured I'd probably be better than him anyway. Right? And preach. So, ultimately I agreed to do it. So I gave him my paladin. And I played my warlock on Magtheridon. In fact, the kill video I have somewhere is from my point of view of killing that. It was one of the first things I frapsed. Let me tell you, I did do a lot to guide the guild. I had some... Nobody could remember. Does anyone remember a Magtheridon where you had to click the 5 boxes at exactly the right time and then you had to rotate people around? You had to have 3 or 4 groups of people do this because you got a debuff. It was quite a tricky thing to do. In theory, it's very easy. When Magtheridon casts a spell, you press the cube. But Magtheridon also earthquakes, knocks people's around, and all sorts of crazy shit. So I had to write macros individually. I had to make 4 macros, I believe, that whispered the 5 people that were going to do it. I had to assign them and rewrite their names every single time we were learning Magtheridon. And all I didn't do any damage pretty much. I would cast a few spells and I'd be like making sure which group was what. I'd be like 1, 2, 3, and then I'd spam it. Then I'd be calling it out on vent. Very much a pure raid leadership role. Kind of like a commander above the battlefield. That was the kind of role I did then. To really sort of make sure things would happen. And getting that kill was really sweet as well. That was a really sweet kill. And I played my warlock. And I owned. And no exaggeration, I was the ownage on my warlock. I was seriously the ownage. I kicked ass on my warlock. I was really good. And every fight we did, I was always number 1 by a long ass way. And this was the first time ever I had played a DPSer. As a healer, one of the greatest things I try and teach you guys is it's very easy to be good when surrounded by average players. It is very easy to be the best and feel good about yourself when you're surrounded by average players. So when I didn't realise what good DPS was like until I did it for the first time. Now, I'd gone through all of vanilla and most of the first tier of TBC before I'd ever stepped foot in a raid proper as a DPS class that I understood. I'd played other people's accounts in vanilla and all sorts of stuff, but I always did sort of average DPS. You know, nothing special. So when I mastered the warlock reasonably quickly, which wasn't difficult to do back then, I was pulling some seriously heavy DPS, and I was really pleased with myself until I realised, after about 2 months, I'd say, that I didn't enjoy my warlock at all. I was like, this is fucking boring. Again, I was just bored. Little did I know that the warrior that I rolled at level 0 the first time I installed the game would be the class for me. I was still finding my way in the game. I was still on my journey to find that. It's been a 1.5 year journey so far. I still hadn't found the class for me, which is pretty cool. I kind of like that. So on my warlock, I was starting to feel bored. It was easy. And I've never been one for enjoying the easy ride. I like the difficult, interesting ride. I don't like the easy ride. I could have stayed in that guild till it declined and been #1 DPS all the time. However, there was this other guild that we mentioned earlier called Celebrity. And they were recruiting a Warlock. I had just been allowed to change to my Warlock by this guild. I'd given my Paladin away. And this guild was getting top world kills. In fact, I think by the time my guild was just about to kill, I kind of want to say, I'm going to be guessing here at best, Tempest Keep. I think by the time we got to around Tempest Keep, they had just started the Black Temple and were getting kills in there. Which was hard for me, as somebody who was aiming for Realm First, to have then become so far behind what the World First guys were doing. We were still Realm Second, but it was a big eye-opener as to the difference that can be made with a really good group of people, because I was pushing my guild very, very hard. I was really, really pushing them very, very hard. And they were up to the Black Temple, and we still had a few bosses to do before we could even consider doing Black Temple. And I started doing things that were bad. Remember, this is the time of egotisticalness, of being an egotistical, elitist arsehole, which was the basis of forming the channel, to try and help you guys avoid both being an elitist and, of course, helping you see elitists for what they are. And I whispered their Warlock main guy. He was called Shmee, C-H-M-E-E, and he was an amazing Warlock. I knew that just from his videos. He was good, very, very good. And I whispered him, and I tried to be pally-pally. I was like, hey, have you had this recipe drop yet? There was a recipe in the Burning Crusade for a belt. Quick chat before I get there. Does anybody know what this recipe is? It's a tailoring recipe. And I was lucky enough to be a tailor on my Warlock, and this recipe dropped in Tempest Keep. While we were doing High Astromancer Solarian, this recipe dropped. As the guild master and raid leader, of course, it came to me. This recipe required a nether vortex to craft. Nether vortexes were BOP from raid drops, which means you had to assign them. You had to assign them. Nobody's got it yet. You had to assign them out. So as the guildmaster and raid leader, there was also, of course, plate and mail and so on and so forth. But we then started doing a thing of which casters need the belt. This belt was best in slot for, I think, up until Sunwell. Pretty much. I think it was better than anything in Black Temple, I think. Oh, you Googled it! You can fuck off. You both answered at the same time. You Googled it. It was called the Belt of Blasting. It was the Belt of Blasting. The Belt of Blasting required another vortex and was fucking easy. You're not catching me out with that shit. And the Belt of Blasting was very overpowered. It was very, very powerful. And you needed these nether vortexes. So we had about 6 casters in the guild. So I said, I need 6 nether vortexes, or nether vertices, or whatever, in order to craft all the belts for the guild. And they would have to bring me the rest of the materials, and I would craft it for them free of charge, of course, as I'd been given the recipe and I was the guild master and stuff. All good. I made myself a Belt of Blasting. I then offered to make belts of blasting for the enemy. For Celebrity. I whispered Shmee and I said, hey dude, we just got this recipe. And he was like, no fucking way, we keep farming for that recipe and it never drops. Have you got it? I was like, yeah. I said, do you want one? And he's like, do I want one? What do you mean? You need nether vortexes. Don't your raid need them? I was like, yeah, but we've got some spares. We didn't have any spares. And this was my in to make friends with this guild, which I ultimately wanted to join and abandon my other guild. So he came to Shatrath? Yeah, Shatrath. He came to Shatrath with his materials, and I straight up made him the belt, and he traded me like 2,000 gold, and I was like, no, don't worry about it. You keep it. And totally made him the belt. This wasn't a problem, of course, until the rest of his guild started whispering me, all the other casters, including somebody who was a couple of people who are very good friends of mine now, actually. I ultimately met them again in Darkstorm. One is called Cornso. You might have seen me play his priest recently. We're still good friends. Another one was a mage called Bicky, who I spoke about earlier, who was also in my first ever World of Warcraft guild. Strange how people come full circle like that. I bumped into Bicky 3 times throughout my existence in World of Warcraft in different expansions, and ultimately ended up playing with him and being pretty good friends with him. Weird. Weird stuff. And Bicky was in Celebrity. It's just one of those things. I had no idea Celebrity was coming, and lo and behold, his name turns up again. I'm like, I know that guy. He's my brother's friend. So weird. And so they started whispering me to make belts. I made a couple more belts for those guys, and I was like their guy. I was like, oh, can you get some more nether vortexes? I said, and then ultimately, people in my own guild was really slack, and even though I had the recipe, they didn't gather materials for about a week and a half, and that's a long-ass time when you've got a very overpowered item that you can get essentially for free by farming some cloth and some motes, and they didn't bother. Then a warlock came to see me, then a mage, and I was supposed to have 6 nether vortexes, one for myself, and that's a weird 6. 6, one for myself, and 5 for everyone else. I now only had 3 left. And I have 3 left and 5 people who wanted them. The math doesn't add up, right? The math don't work. I have 3 nether vortices to craft 5 things out of. So in the raid, I waited like 2 weeks, and then the people were like, can we have our belts and stuff? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then I drop into officer chat without announcing it on vent or anything, and say, oh, I need a couple more nether vortexes. But we were now making the ones for the tanks who had not had best in slot belts, but pretty good ones that were upgrades to their own ones. And they were kind of like, we're getting ours now. Like the tank classmaster was like, no, we're next, aren't we? Haven't you got all the nether vortexes? I said, no, I've crafted them. I think people have been mailing me the stuff, but I need 2 more. They started checking. We had this mod that tracked everything that drops in the raid. So you didn't have to, because we had DKP, right? So everything that dropped in the raid was logged. Every epic item was logged. You had to run an add-on. And so everyone started checking how many had dropped. It got really Sherlock Holmes style, because one of the guys who was the master loot was like, I'm sure we got 5. I'm sure we got 6 to you. I said, no, I think I've only had 4. Like, I couldn't remember. I was like, I don't know, I think I've only had 4, right? I'm sure it was 4. And they're like, well, let me check how many's dropped. And then someone was like, Preach wouldn't lie. Preach wouldn't lie. Somebody's had 2 nether vortexes. Maybe I'm checking through the log here, and we've had 13 nether vortexes. Of course, we had the leather belts first, but then came the caster belts and the tank belts, and then we had the mail belt. What the hell? I mean, something's not right here. I'm like, well, somebody. And then I was like the leader of the conspiracy. I'm like, somebody has stolen the nether vortexes. Who is it? Show yourselves, heathens! Make yourself known! I was really like taking it out of proportion, like really exaggerating the shit out of this situation. I was like, well, this can't go on. From now on, I shall master loot everything. It's so retarded. And then I totally got out of it. I completely got out of it. Whoo! Close call. But my guild was really starting to suffer, and it was a shame, because I had a lot of fun with those guys. But the fact that I tried to betray, and did betray them in that manner, which is terrible, by the way. It's a terrible thing I did. Fuck me. I would never do that now. I can't even think of doing it now, but I did it, so there you go. And I started asking, is there any spots in this guild? By the time I built up the courage to ask for a spot in Celebrity, which is where I wanted to be, they were working on Illidan. And we had just killed Kael'thas, so we were just starting in Black Temple, which meant we were going to kill a few bosses, but we'd still come up against things like Mother Sharaz, and that takes a lot of farming, and based on the guild's farming experience, that wouldn't be easy. And I asked for this raid spot, and I said, can we talk about it later? We're trying to kill Illidan. And I was like, you're on Illidan already? They're like, yeah, we're going really well. I was friends with this guy by then, so we were talking backwards and forwards. And ultimately, they killed Illidan that night. Motherfucker. And then he said to me, and they got World 7th, by the way, World 7th. It was a very proud achievement for those guys, the highest achievement they've ever had, and well done to them, they tried really hard. And they got World 7th on Illidan. And he whispered me afterwards and said, you still want that spot in the guild? And you know, I was so... I put everything. I put so much on me getting into this guild. I couldn't possibly fathom a situation where they would say no. Why would they not want me? My numbers were ridiculous. My DPS was great. My gear was as best as it possibly could have been. I could not fathom a situation where they wouldn't have accepted me. It didn't make any sense to me. I'd always been accepted into any guild I tried to get in. In fact, in most cases, I'd had to negotiate to get more people in with me because I was so needed. And then he whispered me and he, fair enough, said, okay, we're ready to invite you to the guild. You know, we'll give you a shot. And I said no. And it was the first time I really realised that I didn't care about farming bosses. I had farmed bosses for a long time and always felt there was something not quite great about it. And this was the first time he was like, do you want to join this top world 7th guild? And remember, I'm only in the Burning Crusade now. And I just said no. And he went, why? And he couldn't understand, why wouldn't you want to join a world 7th guild? I said, because you've killed Illidan already. There's no fun for me there. And that is exactly how I felt. I went from up here to, I was like, you've done everything. That sounds really dull to me now. I can't think of anything. I'd prefer to stay in my guild and try and kill Allah. And the guy was like, what? Really? I'm like, yeah. So I stayed in my guild and changed class again. I pulled the same maneuver as before. I said I was tired of the game. I was really deflated by this point because I thought I was going to get a chance at a really early world kill of Illidan. I would have been very pleased to do that. I put everything into that. I really worked hard. I betrayed my own guild to try and get into that position. I worked hard. I schmoozed. I made friends with people in that guild. And then it all fell apart from under my feet. It was like, it just went away. The entire situation just collapsed. Like things do. You build things up too much and you put too much stock into them and then they don't materialize into anything. And so, I'm now stuck in this guild. I don't enjoy my Warlock. I wanted to join Celebrity on my Warlock, purely because that was the most geared character I had, and they were going for, you know, Illidan, early world kill, so I needed to be on the Warlock. I didn't care about the class at that point. I wanted to be in the early world kill. That's where I wanted to be. That's what I was desperate for. Life was very easy for me in my guild. And I could get away with murder. I'd robbed the guild, I'd changed classes, I'd done everything. I'd got other people to level my characters, I'd gotten away with all of these things. So life was extremely comfortable. I had my feet up for the majority of the time. And then I changed to tank, warrior tank. And we all know how that went. It was a great time. But I still was sort of deflated with my own guild because if you can DPS easily, very highly against people, tanking is even easier. As much effort as I put into tanking, it was incredibly easy. I had threat that was 4 to 5 times the DPS. So I was in, and this was when threat was reasonably difficult, if not the most difficult time. And I was demolishing it. So again, I was very comfortable, very easy, and that makes me very uncomfortable. It makes me on edge, it makes me bored, it makes me restless, it makes me angry, frustrated, all these things. If I have too easy a time in World of Warcraft, in a real raiding experience, I get very, I don't want to do that. And I just was edgy, so I wanted to quit the game, which is the topic of today's story time, of course. I wanted to quit the game. This is what led me to it. Having such an easy time is another reason why people quit the game, because there is no challenge left. And I didn't know if I was capable of playing with the big boys. So I decided to start looking elsewhere. Note, in this time I had changed classes twice. We are up to Mount Hyjal, which means we have gone through. It doesn't seem that much when I look back on it, but it is a lot. You shouldn't change classes this much. It's just irritating to your guild, and plus you've wasted a lot of gear. So I've been a Paladin, a Warlock, and now a Warrior, and we are in Mount Hyjal, and we have killed Archimond, and we are coming up to Illidan Stormrage. I think we were just about getting to Mother Sharaz. We had Mother Sharaz, the Illidari Council, and Illidan left in the whole expansion at that point. That was it. But Sunwell was coming. And the guys weren't asked about Sunwell. Sunwell was picked as being very difficult. They didn't want to do it. They'd struggled enough already. Illidan had been down for a few months by this point, by the world leaders. So we kind of knew our place wasn't up there. We were still realm second. So things were relatively rosy. But we'd lost a lot of players. Examen had left. Genji, I don't think, was playing it then, or he might have been. We'd lost a lot of good players. The toll of being a raid leader had really weighed on me. I'm not a very good raid leader in terms of keeping my cool. I have very strict policies about being in a raid with me. If I'm leading you in a raid, you must follow what I say. I still stand by that today. It's the correct way to raid lead. And when people have that have a conflict with that, I just tend to fuck them off immediately. I haven't got time for it. I don't care about it. Raid leading properly. Some people call raid leading just saying, come on guys, blow every cooldown, potions, everything. That kind of shit. It's not raid leading. Proper raid leading is actually quite an intense experience and very fun. But I used to get very angry when people would fuck that up for me and make it more difficult. And so, SWP's coming, and I just wasn't prepared to stick around with these guys anymore. And they had quite told me they weren't prepared to push Sunwell. And I was still craving something more than what we've got. I've lost the realm first, so for me the Burning Crusade has almost been a waste of time. My goal in the Burning Crusade was to get a realm first. I wanted to join a top world guild who were better than us, and I failed. I didn't fail, but it was the opportunity was missing. What I wanted from that opportunity was gone, so I couldn't get it back again. So I was in a confusing time, I was frustrated. I still hadn't been humbled by anybody yet and brought into my place of what it takes to be a really, really good player in WoW. And I started looking around. Behind my guild's back. I didn't tell them I was going to leave until I'd found a new guild, which I don't think is actually a bad thing to do. I still recommend that to most people today. Don't tell people you're leaving and then start looking for a guild, because there's animosity there. There always will be. No matter how cool you are about leaving, people will be pissed at some level. I had also re-rolled twice on these guys and used nether vortexes for free for different guilds. I'd done some bad shit, so I was feeling guilty enough as it was, which was kind of cool to finally realise that I'd been a bit of a bastard. So I started looking, and I found another guild, which will ultimately be Kill Count Lost. I've talked about joining them sometimes. But I gave myself this message. I'm so angry and frustrated at World of Warcraft right now that if I don't make it in this guild, because this guild was, I think, World 70th at the time, Kill Count Lost, and I said to myself, if I fail this trial, I will leave the game. And I almost wanted to fail this trial. I had done everything as far as I could tell. I felt like I was one of the best players in the world. I had no way of proving that and no basis for that. It was an absolute egotistical, stupid argument with myself. But I felt that way. And if I was going to be denied by a guild, which would sort of prove me wrong, I think that was probably it, thinking about it now, upon reflection. If I didn't make it here, then I wasn't as good as I thought I was, and I was just going to run away. There was no way I was going back to my old guild with my tail between my legs. I was not prepared to do that after everything those guys believed of me and believed in me, because they believed I was amazing. I could not face them again with that shame of failing in a good guild, in a very good guild. Especially after everything they'd asked me. They relied on me for essentially everything. They did. That's what happened. And people tend to fall into that trap where they are the crux, the linchpin of the guild. Very dangerous. Don't do that. Share the wealth. Get other people involved. Just in case you do leave for whatever reason. You don't want your guild to fall apart. So I got accepted to this guild, and I spoke to the officers, and I spoke to the guild, and I said, look, I'm going to move on. You guys aren't ready or prepared to raid Sunwell Patel Hardcore. I want to have this opportunity to try for a top world guild position. And they were okay with it, which was awesome. They were absolutely fine with it. They gave me a party on the way out. We got very drunk. A lot of people. We had drinking game AQ40 and drinking game ZG, which involved if you got an item, you had to take a shot. When we killed a boss, you had to finish your drink. All sorts of things. We had a guy pass out at Curinax. Not Curinax. The guy who looks like Curinax. Because he downed a lot of absinthe. He was drinking absinthe and he passed out on his keyboard and was running in circles. It was quite hilarious. It was a great night. And then Ghost was at my house for this party, and we had a quiz, a music quiz, which Stark Industries will know all about, but while drunk. We did all that kind of thing. Maybe I should do one of the drinking game runs again. They're quite cool. And they gave me a good send-off. And then I was humbled. But that was the situation I was in. I passed my trial in this new guild on the first raid I ever did. I've told that story before. And I was very humbled at the same time. Very huge learning experience. And I had no intention then of quitting the game. It renewed the life into me. But I put myself in that situation hoping to get failed. Hoping that they would give me the opportunity to leave the game. To give me the opportunity to quit. To give me a reason to say no more. I put myself in that position on purpose. I'm sure many of you, if you've ever tried to leave the game, have tried to get yourself into a situation that will force you to leave, rather than having the sort of guts to just quit the game, or the ability to say I'm taking a break. People find it very hard to say I'm taking a break from the game, I'm just not finding that fun, I don't want to spoil it for myself, so I'll come back, which is a perfectly logical thing to do. I'm friendly, people will be fine with that. But no, we try and make it into a drama and something exciting, and it doesn't quite work. And in that instance, I did that. I put myself in that situation where I'd either pass or fail, and fail, I would leave the game, and that would be my reason. I would then have this overwhelming reason to leave the game. I could justify it to myself. I had something to say. I left because I went for the top world, which is always nice in a story. Well, I tried to play in the top world, but it wasn't really for me. I failed. And then I decided to leave. I wasn't going to go back and raid at a lower level anymore. That was going to be my reason. I had it all planned out. And it didn't work out that way. I'm glad to say, actually, because I'm still here today and still enjoying the game a lot. So I'm going to call it there. It's been an hour and 10 minutes. My voice is atrociously wrecked. And I will see you tomorrow for the final part of the story, and also your stories. Your stories. Remember, Friday is Subscriber Story Day, which means you guys have sent in to me lots of drama stories, which we're going to exaggerate and have some good fun with. So everybody loves Friday Subscriber Story Day. I'm glad to say you've sent me some awesome drama stories that we'll be talking about, and I will talk about briefly the last time I tried to quit WoW, or wanted to, and for what reason. I shouldn't say tried to like an addiction. I wanted to quit WoW. Alright, ballers, thank you for tuning in for me, all of you, for an hour and 10 minutes of story time. And tomorrow we will be continuing. So, till then, ballers, have a great evening, and I'll see you tomorrow at 5 PM GMT. Bye, ballers.